Welcome, BookTube, to what I'm going to call Science Fiction Saturdays, which I'm going to keep up for a while. We'll see. I'm hoping every Saturday we'll talk a little bit about some science fiction. And the first thing that we're going to start talking about is actually this. We're going to start talking about The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury. So buckle up. So The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury. I'm going to tackle this just by talking about some of the short stories in it as I go through the book, because I've never read any Ray Bradbury, actually. I've heard about it lots. I've heard it as like foundational science fiction, really good science fiction, but it's just not something that I came across until I turned around and saw this one day. And it's a beautiful book, and it's got, It's got The Martian Chronicles, The Illustrated Man, The Golden Apples of the Sun. So starting in The Martian Chronicles, I thought, oh, this will be like a one long story, and it's sort of there, sort of not. It's actually a collection of short stories, and he says in the intro as well that he kind of sketched a bunch of stuff together over a number of years, and then some people saw it and said, oh, that's really good. Maybe this is more. So I thought I'd talk about today the first two short stories in this, which is Rocket Summer and Ylla, we'll say, Ylla, which is actually a Martian name. So Rocket Summer. It was cool. So when I read it, it's set in Ohio, and it's winter. There's icicles everywhere. There's kids doing, ice stuff, ice drawing, sledding, stuff like that. And then suddenly a wave of heat comes by, and they go, Rocket Summer. And my first thought was that this is like a Calgary Chinook wind, stuff like that. But it's not. It is actually literally what it says, which it reveals. So the way mine is like most of the stories on this page, and then you flip over and there's like the final paragraph. And it's actually literally Rocket Summer, as in there's a rocket blasting and melting everything. And that, when I saw it, I was like, oh, cool. Like, it wasn't like surprising. Wow, that's so amazing. But it was like, oh, that's cool. Like, that's just neat how they did it. Like, so they're actually in the plume of the heat of a rocket, and they have summer for a very, very short time, which is cool. And I assume that rocket is what goes into the next story, Ylla, we'll say. Which is she's a Martian lady, and she's having dreams. So Martian people are telepathic, which it doesn't necessarily tell you in this first story. I'm 5 or 6 stories ahead already, maybe more. But this is like the first expedition that we're talking about with Ylla, and it's actually set in February 2030, they say. And so she lives with her husband, who is fairly distant, and she starts having dreams about what was his name? About an American. The other thing in this, this is firmly America is doing it. Even later on, as I'm later on in stories, they're saying like America is like America's not letting other people come through. So not letting other people come to Mars anyways. So she is dreaming about this man, this human, coming down and wondering like when he'll come, and then he's gonna like take her away back in the rocket and take off, right? And she says to her husband, like, he's got blue eyes and black hair. Like, oh my goodness, that's crazy, because that's not what Martians have. Interesting, their house is kind of like a flower. So like in the hot summer days, it opens up, it's got water running through it, and then on the cold, that kind of desert nights, it closes up again to be, to shield itself from the cold nights, which is cool. It also would say, that this would tell us that Mars is much warmer than we actually think. Because I think we say it's like minus 40 at the warmest. But anyway, that's what they say here. And it has oxygen in this as well. And so the man's name is Nathaniel York. And she has a dream about him. And he like takes her up. And her husband essentially gets jealous and controls her to stay home. Like verbally says, oh, you'll be here, right? And we're expecting someone. You must entertain. And stuff like that. And like really puts her in a position where she can do nothing but stay. And then he takes his gun, eventually, takes his bee gun, which is literally bees, it sounds like, and goes out, and she sees the rocket come over, and she starts to run, but she realizes her husband, like, oh no, but I told my husband I'd be here, so he's, again, controlled her, and then takes off, and he shoots the guy, is what happens, and she comes back, and she's like, she forgets in this whole, story that she had in her head, this whole, like, vision, basically, that she had in her head, is gone because he's dead. Yeah, that's the big thing. I'm trying to think. I'm just going to skip forward a page or two here. Right? She waits in the yard, and she wants to run down there, but she doesn't. Right? And she cries. She cries over the loss of this experience that she just won't have. So And that's it. And that's it for those first two stories. And she says, I'll be all right tomorrow. She shuts her eyes, trembling. Right? Her husband says, "You'll be all right tomorrow," he said. She did not look up at him. She looked only at the empty desert, the very bright stars coming out now in the black sky, and far away there was a sound of wind rising in a canal, waters stirring cold in the long canals. She shut her eyes, trembling. "Yes," she said, "I'll be all right tomorrow." As she forgets this. So yeah, that's the first two stories. That's Rocket Summer and Ylla from Ray Bradbury's The Martian Chronicles. Stay tuned for next week. We'll cover another maybe one or two stories, depending how long they are. And then long term, I think we'll talk about, maybe some short story science fiction. I've got these to talk about, and I'm not sure how the Illustrated Man, if they're short stories as well, or if it's a longer story, but maybe we'll talk about that too. I've got Infinite Worlds 1 and 2. I've got I got C.S. Lewis over there. I've got his space trilogy. I've got a bunch of other science fiction over there, and picked up a bunch of Kindle science fiction short stories as well. Since I don't want to bring in new books with the virus stuff, we'll just stick to Kindle, I think, which is generally not my preference, but that's what we'll stick to for now. So if you like Science Fiction Saturdays, if you know some good science fiction I should be reading, some good science fiction I should be talking about, a good short story anthology, something like that, let me know. I'm going to say I want it available on Kindle for now in the US store, because that's where I'm going to be purchasing, because that's where my Kindle is tied to, because until very recently, the Canadian store sucked. Probably about 2 years, but that's where all my purchases are anyways. And I will look at getting that and start working through more good science fiction. I've got some audiobooks as well that I can go back through and other stuff like that, so that we can have a Science Fiction Saturday. I'd love to see what you have to say about science fiction, your favorite stuff, and we'll keep going. Have a wonderful day. Good luck with the self-isolation, the social distancing thing. We're going to go. That's one of the things I'm very happy about. We live in a wide open space in BC, so we can take our kids out to the river and be near no one. Easily, and probably 50 families can be out in this and be near no one in this one area, and that's just the most accessible chunk of the river, let alone all the other ones. So if you liked it, you can support me on Patreon at curtismchale.ca/Patreon, or patreon.com/curtismchale. If you loved it, you can subscribe below and give me a thumbs up, and never hit the bell, because you should go read, hang out with your family, something like that. Have a wonderful day.